I never expected Karen's fury to reach such extreme levels. When she heard that I am marrying an Asian, Karen gets furious and called me a traitor. Here's how it all went down. Our place is the kind of town where you'd run into your kindergarten teacher at the grocery store or bump into your high school crush at the local diner. Growing up here felt like being wrapped in a warm, albeit slightly nosy, blanket. My family had been here for generations, and so had Karen's. We weren't exactly friends, but our paths crossed often enough. You know, the typical small-town stuff. School plays, bake sales, and the annual summer fair. Karen was, well, let's just say she had a reputation. She was the kind of person who'd return a cake to a bake sale because it was too sweet. Everyone had a Karen story. So when I announced my engagement to Alex, a fantastic guy I met during a study abroad program in college, reactions were mostly positive. Alex was everything I had ever wanted. Kind-hearted, funny, and he had this way of making every day feel special. He was also of Asian descent. While most folks in town were happy for us or didn't really care one way or the other, Karen seemed to have taken our engagement as a personal affront. One day, while sipping on my usual caramel latte at Joe's Cafe, I couldn't help but overhear Karen's unmistakable voice, directed at Mrs. Thompson. "Mrs. Thompson, can you believe it? She's marrying one of them asterisk. It's like she's turning her back on us real Americans. At this rate, they'll outnumber us and take over." Feeling a mix of amusement and irritation, I decided to approach her table, coffee in hand. "Karen," I began, trying to keep the tone light, "sounds like you have some strong opinions about my fiancé. Care to share?" Karen, never one to shy away from confrontation, leaned in and said, "Well, since you asked, yes, you're betraying your own kind. Marrying him? Do you want them to eventually rule over us?" Suppressing an eye roll, I responded, "He's from California, Karen. Last I checked, that's in America. And what's this them and us talk? We're all Americans." She huffed, adjusting her oversized sunglasses. "You know what I mean. People like him, they come here and soon they'll be everywhere. It's just not the America I know." The cafe had gone eerily quiet, like the calm before a storm. Every eye in the place was laser-focused on our table, and you could cut the tension in the air with a butter knife. Even Joe, the cafe owner, had stopped pouring coffee, his pot suspended in the air as he watched, wide-eyed. Karen's face turned a shade of red that could rival a tomato at its ripest. She looked like a kettle about to blow its lid. When she finally managed to speak, her voice cracked like thunder on a stormy night. "Karen," I said, my voice dripping with determination, "love doesn't give a damn about skin color or where you're from. America's always been a place where folks from all walks of life come together. Maybe it's high time you wrapped your head around that." She gasped, her eyes darting around the cafe, desperately searching for allies in this battle of words. But all she found were raised eyebrows and curious glances. Karen clenched her fists and leaned in, her voice like a whirlwind. "You just don't get it, do you? You're betraying our own kind by marrying someone like him." I held my ground, my voice steady. "Karen, I'm marrying someone I love. That's what really matters." The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Everyone watched, waiting for the next move in this showdown. Her response was like a lightning strike in the middle of a calm day. "Well, I never!" she practically shouted, her chair scraping against the floor as she shot up and stormed out of the cafe. Her exit was like a clap of thunder in a quiet forest, and the cafe came alive with whispers and hushed conversations. People shared knowing glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief, while others couldn't help but chuckle. Joe, now unfrozen, continued pouring coffee as if to say, "This is just another day in the cafe." Mrs. Thompson, with her gentle demeanor, approached me after the confrontation. "Oh dear," she began, her voice soft and comforting. "Don't let Karen's words weigh you down. Some people are just set in their ways and resistant to change." I looked up, meeting her kind eyes, and smiled. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Thompson. I just wish everyone could understand that love isn't bound by borders or backgrounds." She squeezed my hand reassuringly. "In time, most will. And those who don't, well, they'll miss out on the beauty of it all." I thought that was the end of it until a few days later, I found myself chatting with a neighbor at the local grocery store. She couldn't help but bring up the latest gossip swirling around town. "Did you hear what Karen's been saying now?" the neighbor asked, her eyebrows raised. I sighed, expecting the worst. "No, what'd she come up with this time?" With a mischievous grin, she leaned in closer. "She's telling everyone that your fiancé is an Asian spy. Can you believe it?" I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. "An Asian spy? Well, that's certainly a new one." She nodded, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Oh, but don't worry, dear, nobody's buying into her wild tales. We all know she's just got a flair for drama." As the days passed, the rumor about my fiancé being an Asian spy faded into obscurity, just another one of Karen's tall tales. The day of our wedding was nothing short of magical. Friends and family gathered, their faces beaming with joy and excitement. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the sweet scent of blooming flowers. As Alex and I exchanged vows, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and unity. Karen's absence was a mere footnote in an otherwise perfect day. Instead of dwelling on negativity, we celebrated love, unity, and the coming together of two families. As the night drew to a close, with stars twinkling overhead, I realized that love's power to unite was far stronger than any force trying to divide. It's really sad and kind of mind-blowing to see racism still existing today. Even with all the progress we've made and the easy access to information, it just goes to show that prejudice and ignorance can stick around even when we're moving forward. But you know what? We don't have to let those people define our lives or bring us down. We can rise above all that hate and focus on what really matters: love and coming together. I never expected my decision to leave my boyfriend after his ex's death would lead me down a path of guilt and self-doubt. The weight of full-time custody of his kids rested on his shoulders, and I was torn between my own past and the responsibility he begged me to shoulder. Here's how it all went down. Growing up, my childhood was anything but ordinary. I was the eldest, and by default, the second mom to my 5 younger siblings. The age gap was such that I was changing my baby brother's diapers while my peers were hanging out at the mall. Fed up with the responsibility, I left home at 18, vowing never to step into that overwhelming role again. Fast forward a few years, I found love. His name was Max, a dashing 30-year-old with 2 beautiful kids from a previous relationship. His kids, little Michael and Maria, lived states away with their mother. The relationship was pure bliss, at least initially. Both of us bonded over our decision not to have more children and took things slow. So slow that I only met his children a few months ago during a trip, and they were delightful. However, fate threw a curveball. Tragically, the kid's mother passed away, and everything changed. The news hit like a bolt from the blue. "She's gone," Max murmured over the phone, his voice barely above a whisper. "The kid's mother. She passed away." Silence. "I'm so sorry, Max," I finally managed to say, my heart heavy. In the days that followed, the somber atmosphere at Max's was obvious. With their mother gone, the kids had moved in with him permanently. Little Michael would often stare blankly, while Maria's eyes remained red and puffy from crying. One evening, as I was visiting, Max pulled me aside, his eyes filled with desperation. "I can't do this alone," he began. Can you move in for a bit, just to help me get through this transition?" I hesitated, conflicted. "Max, you know my history with parenting. I'm not asking you to be their mom," he interrupted. "Just be here, please." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Living with Max and the kids wasn't easy. Their grief was like a dense fog, enveloping everything and everyone in its path. I tried to be there, to provide comfort and support, but every effort seemed to be met with resistance, especially from Maria. One day, as I tried to make her favorite soup while she was sick, she grimaced after the first sip. "It doesn't taste like how Mommy used to make it," she whined. Doing my best to hide my frustration, I asked, "How can I make it better, sweetie?" She just shrugged. "It's just not the same." Later, I tried to cheer her up with a lullaby. Halfway through, she stopped me, tears streaming down her face. "That's not how Mom sings it," she sobbed. Feeling defeated, I pulled her close. "I'm sorry, Maria. I know I'm not your mom, but I'm here for you, okay?" She just nodded, burying her face in my shoulder, her cries echoing the pain of a wound too raw to heal. One evening, I reached my breaking point and approached Max for support. Instead of empathy, he declared, "They need you. You're like a mom to them." His words felt like a slap, resurrecting old wounds. Feeling trapped in a life I had once fled from, I made a difficult choice. I said my goodbyes to the kids, framing it as a work necessity to spare them more pain, and walked out the door, away from Max and the life that was swallowing me whole. Now, my phone is flooded with accusations and guilt trips from Max. Am I a jerk for leaving? Was I wrong for wanting freedom? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear. I was thrust into a role that I never signed up for. Sometimes, love requires setting boundaries. I had to prioritize my mental well-being, even if that meant walking away. After leaving Max's home, I found solace in returning to my old apartment. The familiar surroundings and memories comforted me, reminding me of the person I was and still wanted to be. A call from Max, post our fallout, was unexpected. He wanted to meet, to clarify things. My heart was guarded, but I agreed, realizing I too needed closure. When he stepped into my apartment, a mix of relief and tension was palpable. No kids around, just 2 adults trying to mend the rift. When Max and I finally had a chat about everything, he looked all regretful and stuff. He began by saying, "I gotta apologize, babe. Going from being a part-time dad to a full-time parent really messed with my head. I realized I was totally clueless and stupidly thought you could handle everything." I nodded, acknowledging his confession, and replied, "Max, I understand the sudden magnitude of your responsibilities. However, I did specify my boundaries early on. I am willing to assist, but I cannot and will not step into a maternal role. He sighed, clearly having anticipated this conversation. The children have taken a liking to you, he admitted softly. They often ask about you and hope for your return. I hesitated for a moment, then I said, their feelings are really sweet, but I've made up my mind. Finally, Max asked the most difficult question. Does this signify the end of our relationship? The weight of his question was intense. I replied honestly, saying, I really care about you, Max, but we have to figure out all these complicated things. I'm willing to stick around, but we need to have clear boundaries. The next morning, armed with a stack of pancakes, I visited the kids. Their questions about my return were anticipated, but answering them wasn't easy. I explained my decision to them, simplifying it in a way they'd understand. Surprisingly, they took it better than I'd feared. Maria, with her innocent eyes, posed a heartwarming question. Can you still be my best friend? A simple request, one I could happily oblige. Today, I feel lighter. Having defined my role and set boundaries, I might not be their mother, but I can still be a friend, a confidant, and that feels just right. You cannot force someone to be a parent and manipulate them because they love you. Being a parent is a big responsibility and should be a choice. It's important to respect each other's boundaries and understand that not everyone is equipped to take on that role. Love should be about supporting each other's decisions, even if they differ from our own expectations. So I, 34-year-old male, went on a summer holiday trip with my brother, 32-year-old male, our mutual friend, Ty, 30-year-old male, and my friend Luke, 25-year-old male. We decided to go to Barcelona and made plans at the beginning of the year with Ty being responsible for the money. We also decided to stay in a hostel, as we didn't know if hotel cramping was allowed in Europe. Plus, we wanted to save money on room and board. Then, we made sure that we had 75 euros per day for each of us. The norm is 50 euros per day. My grandma proposed that, as it would serve as our safety net. We all bought our tickets and made a list of everything we wanted to see, as well as what we wanted to do together. Now let me tell you about my group. My brother AJ is my best and truest friend. He was the first person I came out to, and when I lost my virginity, both with hilarious effects. He's straight and became a strong ally of the LGBTQ+ community after my coming out. He's also a full-time dad and works security on the weekends in the gay village of his city. He's a bouncer. He had always wanted to go to Barcelona, and he and his ex-wife, they are still good friends despite the divorce, also made a list of things he can do and bring back for their daughters. Our friend Ty is our childhood friend that my grandma adopted as one of her own. It's something she does with all our friends, and Ty was no different. She even offered him shelter when he was kicked out of his mom's house while arguing with her. He wanted to go to check out the day-to-day life as he had always thought about moving there. My grandma was helping him save money for that, as well as his transition to Barcelona. She is very keen on her grandbabies gaining worldly experience. Finally, there's Luke. He's a Chinese primary school teacher who recently came out to me. Like Ty, he wants to see the world and figured that Barcelona would be a good place to start. I helped him with his savings as his teaching salary is a bit lower than mine. It's a known secret. We all arrived in Barcelona at night at different times and made our way to the hostel. It was late, so we couldn't check in until the afternoon. That didn't bother us as we took the time to plan everything, including where we wanted to eat together and what we wanted to do alone. We all agreed to have breakfast and dinner together. At around noon or so, we finally got to our room, and it was a room for 12 people travelers, 6 bunk beds. We put our stuff away and headed out for some food. When we got back, we met him, a fellow traveler who looked to be in his 20s and maybe European. It's a safe bet. For the sake of the story, let's refer to him as BB. Baby, for reasons you're going to see. We walked into our room and lo and behold, BB's nosy self was rummaging through our bags. AJ, already fuming, snapped, "Oi, what the hell do you think you're doing?" BB, with a smirk, replied, "Just looking for something fab to wear to the gay bars tonight." "Seriously, dude? Our stuff?" I quipped. "This ain't no charity shop." With a nonchalant shrug, BB said, "It's just the hostel spirit, right? Sharing is caring." AJ's face went red. And believe me, you don't want AJ mad. I've never even dared touch his stuff. "That's my stuff you're handling. Put it down." But BB, audacious as ever, just lifted this really nice apparel Ty got for him. AJ loves wearing it because it's super soft. BB said, "This'll look amazing on me. I'll return it later, promise." Now a bit of context here. AJ and I are as different as chalk and cheese when it comes to confrontation. I'll chat, reason, even throw in a sarcastic threat now and then. But AJ, he's a straight shooter. One warning, that's it. So seeing BB not listening, AJ, without missing a beat, just strode forward and slapped BB right across the face. I mean, it echoed. I shouted, "AJ, what the hell?" With his trademark casual shrug, AJ just said, "Told him to put it back." BB, holding his cheek, spluttered, "I'm reporting this!" But when he told the receptionist, she just looked at him like he'd grown a third eye. She pointedly said, "You broke into their room and went through their things. Seriously?" He sputtered. But, she cut him off. "You can't just take others' things." Though she did warn all of us, Phew, dodged a bullet there. But that was definitely not the last we saw of BB. Much later that night, after we got done exploring and doing our thing, my brother and I went to some museums and Ty and Luke went to a bathhouse. We met up at a club. I didn't want to go as I don't like clubs, but everybody convinced me. I am glad I did because we encountered BB again, which upset Luke and Ty. They told us that BB spotted them in the bathhouse and followed them inside. It went downhill from there as BB wouldn't leave them alone and kept trying to engage in inappropriate behavior with them, even after being politely rejected. He kept saying that they owed him for getting him kicked out of the hostel, and it was the least they could do. Eventually, BB got kicked out after another patron reported him for harassment, and as it turns out, he followed them here, to us. Hearing all of that, I walked up to him and said, "Got something against us?" I pointed out that with millions in this city, why pick on a bunch of foreigners minding their own business? BB had the gall to say, it was our fault he got kicked out of the hostel, and we should have let him wear our clothes. When I said he sounded pretty entitled, he dug his heels in. He even said, "You should be lucky I find any of you interesting enough to follow." Oh, really? I looked at my crew and asked if I could use 500 euros from our fund. They were like, "Why?" I just smirked at AJ and he was like, "Oh shit." I asked the bartender if he knew BB. He was like, "Yeah, he's always mooching drinks off folks, especially tourists." So I ordered 2 bottles of scotch, which I don't even like, and 5 glasses. Gave everyone in my group a shot and 1 to the bartender. BB wanted one, but I was like, "Wait your turn." After we toasted and drank, I looked at BB. "You want your shot?" He looked all smug, so I threw the drink right in his face. The place cracked up. The bartender was laughing so hard because no one had ever done that to BB. "I'm not here for bullies," I told BB. "You've got till the bartender finishes his drink to back off or you're getting another face full of scotch." BB started mouthing off, going on and on about stuff none of us cared about. He was acting like he owned the place, talking some serious trash. Meanwhile, the bartender just shook his head, downed his shot like a champ, and shot us an amused look as if to say, "Who's this clown?" Without thinking twice, I grabbed my glass and threw my drink right at BB. The liquid drenched him from head to toe, and the whole bar erupted in laughter. Everyone was either slapping their knees or holding their sides, trying to catch their breath. Once the laughter settled a bit, I refilled my glass and turned to face BB with a smirk. "You done or you want another round?" I said, raising an eyebrow. But BB wasn't about to be easily deterred. He tried to come back with another snide comment, his voice shaky from the embarrassment. Out of nowhere, in what I guess was a desperate move for attention, he snatched a hat off some guy's head, put it on with a ridiculous tilt, and began belting out an awful off-key rendition of "I Will Survive." No one could believe what they were seeing. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I just rolled my eyes thinking, not on my watch. So I launched another drink straight at him. That finally silenced him. The wet hat now hanging over one eye, BB made a mad dash out of the bar, leaving behind a trail of chuckles and disbelief. The bartender, wiping away a tear from laughing so hard, signaled for everyone's attention and announced a round on the house, probably to make up for the wild entertainment. Our evening turned out to be fantastic, making some great new friends and sharing laughs over the antics of good old BB. And as for BB, we never saw him again during our trip, but he sure did give us a story to remember our vacation by. It's right to let people like BB know that they can't just do whatever they want. Respect for others and their belongings is essential in any shared space. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.